Again, welcome to everybody to today's special webinar. We're looking forward to sharing a glimpse of what we've achieved today, or a look towards the future, and a recap of what we've achieved up until today. This is a COPA members only webinar, but we're certainly open to anybody who's looking to get into our community to learn more about what we've achieved. Okay, we do have quite a few updates to provide. I'll go over today's flight plan. We do have a new president and CEO, Mark van Berkel, and I'll ask him to introduce himself in a moment, and he'll lead us through a review of 2023. We'll look towards 2024, some of the plans under his leadership that we'll be moving towards. We'll receive a advocacy update from Jim Ferrier, and then we'll move towards a Q&A. Okay, Mark, can I ask you to introduce yourself? Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that. So this is our first webinar that we're doing with me as President and CEO, and I think it might have almost been a year since our last one was done, and that's going to change. So one of the things we're really going to talk about tonight is what we're going to do in 2024, because we have a lot of exciting things that are going on. But first, let me just introduce our COPA team. Sharon, who started us off tonight, she's the Director of Marketing and Communications. Jim is also here. He's their Director of Aviation Operations and also heads up the advocacy team. Just going through that slide there, myself, President and CEO, I've been here since May of this year. Michelle Millette, I know she's on as a participant. She's not involved in the meeting, but she's the Executive Admin and Office Administrator. George Farrington, who works for Jim, heading up our external relations. Carolyn Morales-Santana, who some of you, if you've called into the office, she's relatively new, but she's fantastic, and she's helping out in the membership services side of things. And Hannah, last but not least, is working for Sharon, and he's really heading up our communications and events things. So any of the social media stuff that you're seeing, any of the postings, LinkedIn, Facebook, and that's Hannah's magic behind the scenes and trying to get out and help communicate to members better. So this is obvious to everybody maybe, but you know, COPA, the Canadian Owners and Pilots Association, is really Canada's voice for general aviation. It's really our mission to advance, promote, and preserve the Canadian rights to freedom to fly. Essentially, what we are as an association, we're about connecting members, we're about communicating to members, and we're about advocating for members. So really, this association is all about the members, and that's one of the things we want to present today, the idea that we are really trying to shift our focus and really start to build the association so it's really member focused on you. So we see ourselves as a driving force and influence, but we really don't have any authority other than that people give us. So, you know, being your voice for aviation, general aviation in Canada is our important role. In 2023, you know, we had some new staff. I'm new. We have about 12,000 members, which is probably down from what it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And honestly, COVID took a big hit on our membership. You know, some people just gave up flying, but our goal in 2024 is to build value back into the association. And we're hoping we're going to see people come back to COPA. And that's one of the things I want to ask all of our members. If you know somebody who was maybe a member before and has decided not to be a member, find out why. Find out how we can maybe get them back in, because we're better together. We really are a stronger voice, and we have stronger, we're strengthened numbers, right? When we go to Transport Canada and I say there's 12,000, 13,000, 15,000, 16,000 members that we represent, that's more meaningful. The more numbers we have behind us and the group, the stronger we are. One of the things in 2023, our scholarship program is really going off the charts. You see that little blue arrow. I mean, in 2021, we gave out $14,000, which is fantastic. We gave out $14,000 in scholarships. In 2023, we gave out almost $30,000. And in 2024, we're planning for $32,000 of scholarships. And what does that mean? That means new people coming into aviation. These are for advanced training scholarships. These are in introductory people who've never flown before, want to become pilots. And these are people who are coming in to aviation, but we're really excited that we're gaining a lot of traction. You know, we had over 800 applicants and 8 recipients. There's a lot of work to evaluate scholarships within the organization, but that's fantastic that 800 people applied and 8 got money, but 800 people applied. So we also in 2023 we had 36, more than 36, but 36 Discover Aviation events. Discover Aviation is really where all the COPA flights go out to their community and they try to introduce aviation. If you're not a COPA flight member, you should think about becoming one. But if you want to be involved, this is how you can get involved. This is taking people on, sometimes it's people who've never been in a small airplane before and want to learn about aviation. Some of them, maybe that's as far as they ever want to go. They just have nothing more to see once they've been in a small airplane. But other people want to go further, get their pilot's license in that. And so this becomes an introduction, really a discovery event to aviation, to general aviation for a lot of people. We also were awarded a Government of Canada fund, which is part of the SARNEP, which we have been building out what we're calling our COPA Aviation Academy. This is going to be the future learning management system, the future system towards recurrent training. To webinars like this, for example, will be hosted there. But basically, information, safety seminars, and that will all come through this COPA Aviation Academy. We were granted this, and it's open to every pilot in Canada. You don't have to be a COPA member to participate in some of the recurrent training stuff. There will be other member-only content that will be developed, but certainly that's a big initiative that the Government of Canada saw COPA could help fulfill and provide that piece of recurrent training and safety that they want to provide. We were at many events this year, not as many as we have in past, but we were at the Manitoba Aviation Council, the Alberta Aviation Council, ATAC. We were at Oshkosh. So we had a whole Canadians at Oshkosh, and we were at Gatineau Air Show and Casey Aviation event in Quebec. We were awarded an award called the Altitude Award from the Black Aviation Professionals Network. We had a whole bunch of new member benefits that we introduced in 2023. Rogers, Bell, Flightbridge, an app called Pilot Life. If you haven't checked it out, that's pretty cool. We have an association agreement with Boom, which basically allows some very exclusive discounts and coupon availability. And we also have a Good Life Fitness member benefit as well. You should go to our website and check out some of the things that are there. There's things that I think that a lot of members don't realize that the benefits that they get by having a COPA membership. Here's just some of the logos you see of some of the pretty good brands: Hertz, SiriusXM, Good Life, Thrifty, many, Bell, Enterprise, the Pilot Life one there. A lot of good benefits, perks, and discounts come from member benefits. Next slide, Sharon. So we're pretty much finished our run up talking about 2023. So now we're preparing for takeoff. So it's time to fasten the seatbelts, check the doors, make sure things are ready to go. And we're going to talk about what we have in store for 2024. So we're sort of saying in 2023, since I've been there in May, we've been doing a lot of planning, a lot of thinking. We've done some internal looking at the things that we want to do for the members to really build out that member value that should come with COPA membership. And so we've looked at a lot of things. We've looked at every part of the association, and we've come up with a plan for 2024. And I'm saying it's going to be a transformational year for COPA in 2024. We're revamping the magazine and e-newsletter. So we're bringing back the e-newsletter in-house. So it's going to be more of a communication tool versus some of the advertising that you've seen previously, but it's really going to be an informational tool. We're going to push them out more frequently. We've been doing it bi-weekly, but the idea is when we have information to tell the members and we want to communicate, We're going to do it through our e-flight and e-newsletters. The magazine itself, we're going to a 6-issue year, so every 2 months, but we're going to add all kinds of value to it. It's going to become a journal for the association. It's going to be for the members, about the members, by the members. This is a magazine that is about us, the membership of COPA. We're going to have articles about the COPA flights. We're going to have articles about things they're doing. We're going to open things up for opinion pieces. If people want to submit articles or that, we're going to open that up and allow people to submit content that they want. We're going to have a dedicated safety issue in 2024, accompanied with a safety stand down where we talk about safety information in general aviation in Canada. We're introducing a COPA podcast, which is going to be on the off months of the magazine. So every 2 months, maybe even more frequently, we're going to have a podcast that comes out that's going to provide a different context and different format of information that we think that members want to hear. These travel guides that we've built, we've had a lot of COPA guides over the years that we're revamping, we're relooking at all of them. The board of directors is helping us to bring them up to speed and make them more relevant to today. But we're also going to build out some travel guides. We want it to be so that people have a reason to fly, places to go, things to see, where to park your aircraft, what FBO should you use, to fill out the things so that it almost becomes like a Michelin star guide for using your aircraft in places you want to go. So we're really trying to build out the value and show people that personal and private aviation really can enhance your lifestyle and your life to you. Next slide. So we're also revamping the Canadian plane trade. We've heard through the membership survey that we did earlier this year that this is an important thing, and it's an important member benefit. We want you to be able to sell your airplane, buy airplanes, but we want it to be a benefit to members and an exclusive member benefit. If you're not a member and you want to advertise on there, well, you can either become a member or you can pay to advertise on there. But we want to turn it from becoming more of a garage sale format that it has been to something that's very valuable for Canadian aviation. So we want to become the place to go to buy and sell aviation parts, avionics, aircraft in Canada. We're introducing a new member management system, and this is happening as we speak. Maybe some of you have seen a bulletin that we sent out earlier about there's over the break here between Friday and January 2nd, we're transitioning over. And that is really going to be the framework and the platform for which we're able to deliver all the good services that we're planning. It's going to incorporate our website, and actually, coincidentally, our website happens to be down today, and this is one of the reasons we're transitioning away from the current platform that we're on. It just hasn't been reliable and just hasn't been good for us. But it's going to provide so much information and ability to members to get the information that they want to have. We're going to have online forms, the ability to access those guides that we talked about, and a lot of other self-serve member benefits. And the idea is we want it to be part of your flight planning. So when you're planning a trip, we want you to think, I need to go to the COPA website, log in as a member, and get the information to make your trip better and easier, hopefully. We're also have introduced, and it's been selling fantastically, we introduced a new merchandising partnership with Red Canoe. We were sort of running our own store, but that's not a really great way. So we've partnered with Red Canoe, and we just before American Thanksgiving, we launched a long sleeve shirt with the old classic vintage logo on it, and it sold out in large within days. We're bringing more, but the idea is to have a more exclusive and high-end merchandise available to the members, because the members say that they want that, but do it through our partnership with Red Canoe. So keep your eyes out for Red Canoe and that exclusive COPA collection. So just to give an idea, and you saw the things where we were last year, this is where we're going to be this year. If you look at all the events that we're going to be at, we're going to try to be at a lot of places and getting out there. And and actually changing the focus to provide, being a member of COPA as a benefit. At the Aero Gatineau Air Show last year, we provided a member tent. So members, COPA members, were able to come and sit in an exclusive area and watch the air show from our exclusive area. We're going to try and do that at more places this year. But we're going to be at Sun and Fun. We're going to be at Oshkosh again. We're going to be at the Abbotsford Air Show. We're going to be at the Casey Aero Venture again. We're going to be at the Stanley Fly-In. We're going to be again at the Aero Gatineau Air Show. So we're going to be at a lot of places because we really feel that we need to get out there and allow people who may not be members of COPA to experience things and see us as a group that they want to join and a group that they want to be part of. That's part of us connecting the members. Next slide. And, well, this as part of our presentation tonight, Jim is going to give an advocacy update as the director of AV Ops. He's going to give us an advocacy update. So I'll turn it over to Jim.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, everybody. It's good to be online with members again after a bit of a hiatus. I've seen some of the comments about safety seminars coming back on the academy and so on. So like you, I've missed those. I think they're a great, valuable thing that COPA is able to provide to our members and to the aviation community. 2023 has been a busy year for COPA with change, as Mark talked about, but more so with industry events and changes and things happening in the industry, regulatory proposals, changes, those kind of things. So I know many of our members have experienced frustrations in some areas. One of the things I think Mark has talked about is becoming more communication on our behalf on these issues. We have been relatively slow on getting some of the information out at times. So it's good to be able to do a year-end wrap up, which will be great. I've already seen question about CIFIB in there, so there will be a little bit of talk about ADSB and that here. I probably won't get into super detail at this because we just got an hour, but I'll kick it off. First thing, website, as Mark talked about, happens to be down right at the moment, but the advocacy section has been updated. Sharon and her communication team and George and myself have brought things up to date. So that's going to be kept up to date going forward. So we'll jump into it. So big thing, we are a TC partner in a program called the General Aviation Safety Program. I think most members know what it is. Back in around 2017, it was started when Bernard was still our CEO. There have been traditionally 6 working groups there around various aviation issues, maintenance and airworthiness, rotary wing group, a seaplane group, a group looking at stabilized approaches and laws of control, ultralight working group, and a volunteer reporting group. So those are the traditional ones that have been there, and there's been lots of work going on in those over the course of the last year in those meetings. Big one is Transport Canada has done analysis and developed a presentation on stabilized approaches, which has fed some into our first module that's going to be coming out in the Aviation Academy, which will be around loss of control. So there'll be some information coming there. Also, the volunteer reporting group has been successful in beginning the development on a volunteer reporting system online that we're hoping to launch in the not too distant future. First focused at a lot of the flying schools, but hopefully we'll be able to bring it to our members as well as a source of gathering information about how we operate as a general aviation community and be able to feed in and see the issues that truly are facing our group. This year, at the meetings for the General Aviation Safety Program, we also had 3 new groups introduced. So one on safety equipment, so both the safety equipment that's on board, but more focused on optional safety equipment and optional safety equipment that can be installed on aircraft under the new North Sea requirements, and looking at the legacy equipment that's there as well, and looking at where changes might be necessary. Communications group, much like this webinar is about, getting more communications. So the General Aviation Safety Program hopes to improve the communications and the safety information coming out there. And finally, a big one for us, because George, who is our Director of External Relations, is going to be the one leading it, is a mental health working group. So something that I think society as a whole has recognized, that there's been a big focus on mental health, especially after coming out of COVID, and there will be a group that started up, and George will be the chair for that. So we're excited about that, and that group feeds into a little bit more I'm going to talk about later as well. So the second big concern, I guess, or issue that we're watching, Mark and I have had a number of conversations over the course of the last few months, is around aerodromes. Really, the things that are starting to concern us, obviously, are closures. Those of you who are members in Ontario have seen Buttonville close. A number of other airports in Ontario where being put up for sale by municipalities. We are watching those situations quite closely as well, to see how we can possibly provide information to anybody who might be involved with those purchases or ongoing future of those airports. And without necessarily closure, other things which are increasing fees at aerodromes. So we've seen Mirabel, for example, in Montreal, price themselves really out of the general aviation market to not be a general aviation airport. So I know Mark has been doing quite a bit of work with the community there, talking about what we can support them in Montreal and Mirabel in particular about access. We've also seen, of course, landing fees and things appear in airports, or increases in airports across the country, as airports are looking to see how they can raise their revenues as times change. Most recently, we had a large issue out west in Langley, where the municipality is looking at making some substantial changes to the leasing arrangements for members. So we've been quite active with the group there in trying to provide support and monitor the situation going forward. Obviously, around aerodromes, those of you who have looked at the website, we did commission a study by HM Aero a couple of years ago, which provided their analysis last summer in a report that we use quite extensively with municipalities, showing the economic and social benefits of having local airports. So for any of you maybe dealing with your local airports and need information, that is a great source to go to. And overall, in the whole climate around airports, we did launch a survey a couple of weeks ago online to members. So if you haven't filled it out, please go ahead and do it, where we're trying to assess the current climate. And I guess we would quote it as being GA friendly for what airports are and where we're seeing issues. Another issue on the plate, of course, been around for a while, is of course the 100 low lead issue being pushed mainly in the United States, of course, through the Environmental Protection Agency. So they did produce their finding that it was a dangerous product this year. So that will drive some regulatory changes in the US. As we know, the Eagle Group has been working to find alternatives. The first 100 unleaded candidate came out last year from GAMI. We've recently seen that there's a second candidate from Swift that has just been approved. So there are a couple coming, although we're also hearing that there may be some issues with the GAMI product going forward, and may need to be some twists and changes there. Around the 100 low lead also is the big concern over the differences between a fleet-wide STC and individual STCs, and the availability to individual aircraft types. Replacement-wise, 94 unleaded has been available for some time. We did see an unfortunate development recently, where the University of North Dakota was using that on their fleet, and they have recently stopped because they have begun to see some valve damage happening on their fleet of aircraft, which need to be evaluated before continuing that use. So still things being watched. There has been some progress, as I said, on the 100 low lead alternatives. We'll have to see how industry and more particularly the fuel industry can scale and provide delivery and so on of the products. Big one, which we had a lot of excellent feedback and engagement by the membership this last year, was regarding the NPA 2023-005 about changes to night VFR and currency, and a whole bunch of issues that got stuffed into one NPA. COPA led the charge on that one with industry. We received a large amount of feedback. There was a large amount of feedback to government. Transport Canada, I'm going to say, was probably surprised by how much feedback they got. Sitting in the CARE Act discussions this fall, Transport Canada recognized that they're still needing to get through all of the feedback around NPA 2023-005. They did also acknowledge that NPA will not be moving forward without more consultation. Does still sit on the CARE Act list for 2024, but interestingly, at the CARE Act discussions this fall again, there was some suggestion that items will be either changed or removed from the list in 2024. So we're hoping that that is one of the ones. We're continuing to pay particular attention to it. And we will continue to keep members updated as we need to on that, and look for feedback going forward. Medicals and licensing is another one that we continue to monitor and watch. Unfortunately, still seeing delays in the system. Transport Canada has been taking some action, and in fairness, we have seen some success and some improvements in this area. They did introduce an information request form, which has allowed members and other pilots to get information back regarding their applications and their medicals in a more timely way. Transport Canada is also, in particular, if you're out in the West, you'll have noticed Transport Canada has introduced local portals, which are going to be, as we understand, rolled out across the country, but we don't have a full timeline on that yet. So if anybody's interested in that, I would reach out to your friends in BC or in the West that may already have had the experience. The intention behind the portal is that there will be one point of contact for users where you can track the status of your application, much like, as they like to say, like your Amazon order that you've been ordering for Christmas here. So with regard to the actual processing, Transport Canada continues to indicate that, for the most part, pilots visiting their CAMI with non-complex files are being approved right away, and generally new applications without any kind of history or underlying conditions are being processed in the timelines they normally see. In particular, they do highlight that obviously people with underlying conditions take longer. In particular, and Mark has had this said directly to us, he and I, that they're not looking to reject people. They're looking to find ways for people to be approved. So that's often behind the timelines. Challenges, of course, are our aging pilot demographic, and interestingly, on the younger people side, it is where young people are beginning to show up and going for medicals where they've already had diagnosis of conditions because of the way the medical system has changed. And when those young people present, then they need to find the solutions or the answers on how they can qualify them. Obviously, there's lots more work to be done on the medical side of things. As I said, on the aviation safety program, is introduced a mental health working group. George is going to be leading that. We have seen some progress on mental health improvement, and if you go to your CAMI, you may actually get a little bit of a briefing on that, because I've been hearing from some members that they've been getting information fed down from Transport Canada nationally to the CAMIs that their mental health problems are not necessarily disqualifying. Often it is much more around medications that are used in those conditions that are more of a concern. So it's really to find the right medication or treatment that's available for people for them to continue flying or be able to get into flying. Similarly, with other conditions, medications are often the underlying problem about continuing to fly. And in response to that, we've started to work with Transport Canada on really getting information out in a more timely manner or an easier manner for people to understand what medications can be used when you're flying, what ones to be concerned about, ones to consult about. So we're going to be working on that and looking to get some information out to members on that in the not too distant future. Get into some NAV Canada issues. So NAV Canada experience continuing this year to see restrictions or denials of service into controlled airspace. Obviously, we're getting to the winter months. We're seeing less now, but again, this summer of 2023, we did see quite a few of them again as we did in 2022. NAV Canada acknowledges that it is an issue. Staffing still remains their biggest challenge with regard to the denial of services. And although they've started large amounts of training within NAV Canada, we do expect that next year we will see some continuing issues around access to some controlled airspace. Along with that, NAV Canada continues with their level service studies. We're still seeing studies coming out with recommendations for reduced services and or closures of sites. In particular, recently, the announcement of the closure of Prince Albert and reduction of hours in Brandon and High Level. But all three being, GA type airports. So things to continue to monitor. Unfortunately, traffic levels in a lot of those places have died off quite a bit. So it's harder and harder to support some of those services. NAV Canada has announced that they are looking at future digital facilities in order to continue to provide services at some locations, which they'll be able to do with lower staffing levels. So while not available yet, the first facility was announced to start in Kingston, looking to prove the concept and then build out from that. A number of other countries in the world are doing this. In particular, some of the northern Nordic countries are doing it with quite good success. So something we're continuing to watch there and see how that can pan out. Big one, of course, ADS-B mandate and electronic conspicuity, those kind of things that's being talked about. So NAV Canada has officially announced that Class C, D, and E airspace will not be implemented before 2028. So we have 2 more years pushed into the timeline now. NAV Canada, in looking at the results of their rollout in Class A, they're beginning to see data that and are acknowledging that space-based ADS-B will not be suitable for congested terminals. With that, they are exploring and testing some ground-based solutions. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of information they're sharing around the scope or the plans about this testing. They have bought some ground stations, we understand, and they have also, from our one earlier comment around CIFIB, I believe they've also purchased some equipment to look at possible UAT as well, although they continue to say that they will not be looking at a UAT solution through NAV Canada. Main concern quoted when we have the discussions is around the 1090 megahertz frequency congestion, and that they can't do, well, in particular, they couldn't do UAT on that, but this is the problem that they're talking about is this 1090 congestion issue. Along the same lines, discussions within the community, CIFIB has actually introduced some public 978 UAT. We did have George and I had an opportunity to have a little bit of discussion at a event in Edmonton earlier this year, which was looking at our past trials. A lot of the information coming out of the RPAS community also is around how do we see and be seen when it comes to RPAS. So we're looking at electronic conspicuity, which is essentially low-powered ADS-B type transmitters, portable on aircraft. Beginning to see growing support in the community for this. There have been some discussions with Transport Canada. At this point, electronic conspicuity is really being looked at from a voluntary point of view. Obviously, COPA is not looking for mandates on anything that's going to force people to go buy equipment that may or may not be necessary for their individual use. Issues, of course, with electronic conspicuity are: do non-certified equipment meet the standards we want to use in our operations? And how does non-certified equipment fit with a regulated ADS-B mandate? So a working group has been started with this, with a number of industry players, being led by Bernard Gervais from Quebec, Aviatur Quebec. So we are an active member on that working group, and we're going to be looking at how electronic conspicuity can fit into our environment. Luxury tax, I don't have, unfortunately, much to update on that avenue. The industry does continue to engage with the government. In particular, CBAA is the lead, as obviously they're the biggest impact from this tax. Most of what I'm hearing is we're probably looking at a government change before we can and really get to the ability to revisit. With that, I just got a couple of quick ones. Of course, 406 ELTs continuing to be on the horizon for 2025. In our discussions with Transport Canada, we continue to stress that if we're talking about an ADS-B mandate, do we really need to have 406 ELTs at the same time? Or are there other options that could be considered to go along with ADS-B, such as, personal locator beacons or cell phone searches and those kind of things that are other operations or other ways of doing things that may preclude people having to buy 406 ELTs, which unfortunately we continue to see do not activate a large number of accidents and incidents that happen. Final topic, big one that we continue to follow is basic med in Canada. Our neighbors to the south, it's a very big issue. They have I think it was 70-some thousand pilots or something like that using basic med now. So a big topic for them to come to Canada. AOPA and ourselves have had discussions about it. We have written a letter to Transport Canada last year where the transport minister did come back and commit to a review and look at the issue. We have not gotten any formal responses from it. In our informal conversations with Transport Canada Civil Aviation Medicine, they still continue to say or indicate that it's a lower priority within Transport Canada, and they're struggling with getting a priority within civil aviation medicine to be pushing forward with some of those changes. So that is one that sort of disappoints us. We do recognize there might be some opportunities to change some of the civil aviation medical rules we have here in Canada and maybe make it easier for some of our members and our community in general to continue to enjoy certification in order to continue to fly in maybe less stringent way. That really leads me to I guess the very last comment I'll make on my updates when we're talking about TC priorities and issues is it was recently announced, and I'm not sure how many people caught it on the news, that Transport Canada had a ICAO audit recently. Unfortunately, Canada did not do well. I don't think it's surprising to those of us who are watching it on a daily basis. Not being somebody in the industry looking at it day to day, I don't think it's a safety issue necessarily. I think it's much more of a case of how Transport Canada processes and methodology has changed, and it's becoming more and more difficult for industry and the community to have input to, for us to find some, practical, mutually beneficial ways to change rules and regulations and so on, and continue to keep our industry safe, and by working together. That I think there's been a bit of that loss, but unfortunately, with that lower rating by ICAO, we do know that Transport Canada is going to have very large priority put on them in order to rectify that, which was going to be hugely workload intensive for them. So we're unfortunately not anticipating a lot of change coming out of transport in the at least the near future, till we really understand the impact of that audit. So with that, that's the audit, or the updates for the year. You can see lots of things going on, really trying to keep on top of things. George and I, two guys, trying to keep the balls in the air and follow things. So I guess the last thing I'll leave with the group here, and which we probably need to say more as well, is continue to bring issues that are of concern to us. While we watch what's going on, we don't necessarily see every single news release or change or activity that's happening out there. So if you can bring feedback to us and concerns, that's important for us, as we can continue to monitor and watch what's going on in the industry for the association. Thanks. I'll pass it back to Sharon. She's running the show, so we'll go from there. Thanks.
Well, there was a couple of questions there, Jim, that
Okay.
that were in the chat that I saw, and maybe we can just maybe you can just quickly address them. Tim had a question about the status of propeller overhaul regulations.
Okay, propeller overhaul.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, where we know we are with propeller overhaul, so it is still on our list of items that we're watching. Our technical committee is still working on that issue. Transport Canada, what I would say, has not been particularly receptive to having discussions about changes from the 10-year rule. We have proposed some, or I've looked at and thought about some alternate ways of potentially doing this. The working group that the technical committee had going hasn't gotten to the point where we would be providing any kind of further feedback to TC. So it hasn't moved a lot. Again, the last indications we had from Transport Canada is they're not very receptive to it. So we'll need some good background research and information in order to go to them.
Yeah. Okay. And then Paul had a couple questions. One of them was about, I'll just read it verbatim. Whether you fly IFR or VFR, your navigational fees are the same. Given the many times services are not available to VFR, should there be reduced cost? Maybe you could talk about our recent discussions with Nav Canada and where we sort of fit in the pool of cash that comes into Nav Canada.
Yeah, and this is an ongoing. I mean, I can think back to the creation of Nav Canada, where these discussions were about the fees. Yeah, Nav Canada, I again, much like I just said about Transport Canada and with the prop overall, they're not really interested in having discussions about changes to fees for the flat rate fees, especially the GA users. When you look at the actual fees that are being paid in comparison to, as much as we say, yes, we're being denied access to controlled airspace, but we have to look at the flat fees typically are more focused on the services just to be available generally across the country. The actual revenue that GA generates for Nav Canada comes nowhere close to the amount of money they expend on things like weather services and flight planning services and other things. Whether people use them or not, they provide them, and that's really what those were targeted to. And they're just not
I
interested in that. And they do have a mandate from the legislation, of course, the Act, the Air Navigation Service Privatization Act, to charge as they see fit. It needs scrutiny, needs consultation.
yeah.
Yeah, I
But what
understand, and I think it's extremely frustrating that we can't get access in places, but I wouldn't see them changing anything in the near future.
and that I think is the crux of the problem, not necessarily the fees per se, but that there's been denial of VFR
Yeah,
services, and that is something that we are actively working on. This is back to this whole, Nav Canada level of service. We've had multiple conversations with them, calling them out and saying, listen, you can't just no VFR for all Southern Ontario. This is just not acceptable. And they have blamed their staffing levels, which it may be a bit of an excuse, but also there's some reality, finding somebody and then putting them in a chair at the point where they actually can be an active air traffic controller is not a trivial task, right? It takes time, energy, and money. You know this probably better than anyone, Jim, but it's not trivial. But rest assured that we are having continual conversations with NAV Canada about the level of service and also about the fees too. We had a recent review, as one of the stakeholders. They consider us one of the stakeholders. They did afford us the ability to have a review of their fees, and they are keeping them modest as they can, for the flat fee increases. But certainly the conversation is more about the denial of VFR and denial of services to general
yeah,
aviation.
yeah. And I guess what I would add to that, and what certainly the focus that I've been taking with it, as much as it's the denial of service that you're not getting access to the airspace, the issue is, when airspace is being closed to VFR, there are places in the country where you're now forcing the GA community or the VFR community into more congested airspace, uh, creating more opportunities where there could potentially be safety issues based on, dimensions and altitudes available and so on. So I think those are the points, I've really tried to stress, both with NAV Canada, and so people understand. We also have the conversation with Transport Canada, and Transport Canada actually has been relatively supportive in the arguments we've been making with NAV Canada. They recognize some of the safety concerns, and they have asked some direct questions to NAV Canada. Unfortunately, it seems that like so many things in the industry, it's coming back to staffing and having people available to provide the services that really should be available. So
Yeah.
I don't believe there's a short-term fix to it. NAV Canada's training more controllers than they've ever trained this year. So they are working on it, but yeah, it's a two-year plus process depending on what the qualifications are for someone. So
Yeah. And Paul had another question, and I'm going to interpret it, I think. I think when you were talking about the electronic conspicuity,
yes,
he says Echo Sky, but I think he means Sky Echo, I
yeah,
think.
the
And
Sky Echo. Yeah.
electronic conspicuity, the Sky Echo, uh, is an electronic conspicuity device. I think
Yes,
that's one of a few
yes.
that are out there. So Paul,
Uh,
that's what I think. Yeah, that's exactly what electronic conspicuity is
yeah,
referring to.
yeah,
So
and I mean, obviously, COPA supports any kind of
sure,
safety equipment that can help people have better
sure,
situational awareness and all the rest. It's just right now there's a little bit of confusion. We're a little bit unique because we now actually have being Class A airspace, which is fine, it's controlled, but we have a mandating controlled airspace. We're being told there's going to be some kind of mandate in the future. Yet, how does electronic conspicuity fit in with certified ADSB and
yeah,
a mandate? So there's obviously a lot of benefits, but there's also questions to be answered before, as a community, we just go, yes, go to, I mean, right now it's available. You want to buy one and put it in your airplane, you're going to see airplanes
Sure.
with MOS transponders and ADS-B and all
Yeah.
the rest. So there's not a downside. It's just, it's not a certified piece of equipment. And,
Yeah.
and I don't foresee it, at least at this point, being a solution for the 2028 plus.
Yeah. And I think that's the real key here, that those types of portable devices will never meet the requirements of the ADS-B mandate if it ever comes into fruition for the smaller general, CD&E airspace. While those are really great devices for your own safety, providing some sort of traffic avoidance, it's certainly not going to be. It's certainly not going to be, and we're not even pretending that we would think it would be. It's never going to be to meet the mandate of ADS-B. So,
yeah, well, certainly in the existing rules, I mean, you would never be able to, for example, STC an EC device in order to.
Right. Well,
you just couldn't do it now.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, maybe rules can change and things like that, or equipment changes somewhat that you can do it. But those options aren't here. But we do have a working group, and that's a positive. So we're going to start to look at what's there, what's available, how could it be used. Like anything, I mean, if we can find a working solution before somebody comes and shoves a rule down our throat, then maybe we can guide it to where we want it, rather than it being mandated on us without any input. So
we're trying to remove any barriers from using it, but we're not advocating for it to be mandated either, right? So we're saying, hey, listen, if you want to use it, great, there's no harm, no foul, go ahead, put it in your airplane. You're going to see all kinds of, the visibility, even with like a Sirius XM weather or something like that. But we're never going to say, hey, we have to make this mandatory for airplanes. That's not our goal. So.
I'm just seeing a couple that came in. John from Florida. If you haven't gotten an answer from TC, we have a form online that you can fill out, or you can just send an email to the office, and it'll come to either myself or George, and we can look at it. We need your file number and birth date and a bunch of stuff, but the info is on the website if the website's up, and there is actually a form you can submit, but the email's fine too.
Great. In consideration of time, and just to let you catch your breath for a minute there, Jim.
There we go.
Such a wholesome update. I'll just quickly go over the COPA Aviation Academy, which Mark had mentioned earlier. And there was a few comments tonight about how some folks miss our safety seminars. So to provide an update on where that's heading, we did win an award from the Government of Canada to launch a e-learning platform. And it's the first within the GA community here in Canada. Something like this already exists in the US. And so we're somewhat basing off a similar framework of recurrent training, where you can go into a system, you can get your credits at a time that's convenient to you, and we will continue to have the live Q&A environment, but after or before you've already done some of the training or the refresher training through our courses. So it's going to be the only tool of its kind in Canada. We are working away at it. It is meant to keep training affordable and accessible to the flying community. With some of the courses that we're working on right now are on loss of control, on pre-flight planning. There'll be some search and rescue content, of course, as that's what the fund granted us to deliver training around prevention of the need to be rescued. And so I'll just quickly give a preview to the tool overall. So you should be able to see when you log in, it's going to be a separate portal from the COPA website. So you as a COPA member will be asked to create a new login. But as soon as you log in, you'll see videos, and you'll be able to scroll through and see videos from COPA. We have a video here from our our Minister of Transport. I won't play it right now. There'll be a personal greeting for you. You'll be able to track your own learning. You'll see here I've earned a badge. I'm able to keep my certificates. As always, you should put any recurrent training or any training that qualifies for recurrent training directly into your logbook should you be audited by TC. And you can see your own progress over time. I'm not doing so hot, but these are all tests right now, and you can earn credits. And in the future, we're aiming for the tool to both promote recurrent training and proficiency. So a flight instructor might be able to go in and help check off some of the learning that you had conducted. There's going to be some gamification in the system as well. So those who are in and using a lot, taking advantage of the learning as much as possible, commenting, asking questions, you'll be rewarded just as you were with the safety seminars. For safety seminars, we gave out some pretty fantastic prizes each year, and we'll continue doing that again. While the focus is on safety training and continuing the legacy of the safety seminars that we've started, our intention is to have more fulsome content. So leadership training, you can see here, that might be anything for our COPA flight chapters to support the captains or future leaders to continue to be able to pass the torch down and to learn what's needed to maintain a successful chapter. It might be on for those pilots in our community seeking to have an airline career or whatever else. And then health training. So that might be mental health, as Jim had mentioned quite a bit tonight. It might be on your overall physical health as well. And there'll be live Q&A sessions that are just held on Zoom where you can go in and ask any of your questions. So you can see that we're starting to build out our library right now, and we'll continue to do so moving forward. So that was just a last update from me here. Looking at the time, we don't have much left, but perhaps there's a few more questions we could pick out. Mark, you've likely been following along.
Yeah, there was one about ATPL conversions, not understanding about why ATPL pilots from other ICAO-governed countries who have thousands of hours on jets as first officers can't do conversion course to move to Canada. USA to Canada is easier. I understand items like taking some IFR-based testing. Is there some differences? But asking for 250 pick hours, a first officer has 4,000 hours on type. Airbus doesn't have pick hours, and 172 seems ridiculous and largely red tape. Canada needs pilots. So Ian, you're absolutely right. But so the realist in me says that there's more political things going on here than training things. You know, there seems to be barriers. You know, and certain industries have certain barriers to them, and I think this is one of those things. I certainly don't think it is. I know that there's some conversion, especially between USA and Canada. There's some conversion for licensing that can be done. You know, a Canadian license get FAA license can get a Canadian license, but I don't know if it's opened up to every single ICAO country. But certainly, I know that there's certainly is some red tape. This is not something I think we're actively working on, though, to be honest with you. This is more of an ATAC type of problem or something like that, the air transport type of thing versus general aviation, though, I would say. Jim, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, that being said, though, good question. Certainly in some of the discussions we had when we were at ATEC, some of the working groups are definitely looking at how to make things easier for pilots to come, get qualified, work in Canada. As I mentioned, I mean, it's pilots, it's air traffic controllers, it's AMEs, it's everybody in the industry. We need people, period. Let's make it easier. Let's, you know, we're recognizing experience needs to be recognized. We should be doing it, and we certainly would support and
oh yeah.
If I was sitting in a meeting and with transport, I would say, well, it seems a little ridiculous to me, right? So
yeah. No, see, absolutely seems right. I just don't want to leave the impression that this is a file we're actively pushing forward in our advocacy efforts. So for ATPL anyway. But thank you, Ian. Was there any other questions in the Q&A or in the chat?
I'm not seeing any others, but uh, just seeing some very positive comments. Thank you for
The one thing I will say, we want to have more of these open things. We haven't had them, and going forward, we want more webinars. We're also soliciting ideas. If there's things that people would like, the members would like to hear about, again, we're here as members to, connect and communicate and advocate. So if there's certain subjects, if there's things, please email in to the office and suggest a webinar in the future. We certainly are open to ideas, because we want to give you what you want to know. We gave a bit of an update, is more just because we're moving into 2024, and there's going to be a lot of changes to COPA in 2024. I'm hoping that in 2025 we look back at 2023 and go, who were those people? The organization is a much better member-based organization than it was in 2023. So that's my hope and goal. But we want to hear from you.
Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for coming tonight. Jim, Mark, this has been very informative conversation with our members. Like Mark mentioned, we're hoping to communicate with you more often, become better storytellers within our own network. The word transformation or transformative year will be repeated over and over again, and we hope to see what your thoughts are at the end of next year. So happy holidays, everybody. Please always be in touch if you have any questions, comments, or insights to share with your COPA National office, and we'll see you again soon. See you in the new year. Take care.
And just to close, if any, this obviously was done in English. We're happy to, at your request, provide you the slides and the information in French if that's what you would like. Just contact us and we can get them to you in French. But thank you for being patient with our English only presentation.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.